This is Inside the Right. All right, Tim, we've had a turbulent day here with some major new reporting from Axios that Nikki Haley was under active consideration by Trump to be his running mate. Trump then posted on Truth Social that she's not under consideration, but that he wishes her well. I don't know that Trump saying that she's not makes it more likely or less likely that it's true. General rule of thumb is that if Trump says something, he's lying. But can you, regardless, speak on the possibility of whether she would become his vice presidential pick and whether you believe it, regardless of Trump's denials?
Yeah, I don't really believe the Axios scoop. What I think is happening, what I suspect is happening. Axios said they had two high-level sources around Trump, and I think that there are probably two people around Trump that do want him to consider Nikki Haley, right? And that they speak to Trump through the media, and they're trying to convince him. You saw this a ton through 2016 and 2020. People would go on Fox and be like, Mr. President, you should act more normal. Like you should stop lashing out. You know what I mean? Like they do
Yeah.
this
And
in the hopes
famously, that worked. He's now
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a really winning strategy.
yeah.
And so, I think that is probably most likely what's happening here. It might also be, the reporter at Axios getting out over their skis, or like you said, it could be Trump lying. Like it's hard to know for sure. I think in the biggest picture, I have always found it very hard to believe that Trump would end up picking her. There are obvious political benefits to him with these swing voters we spend a lot of time talking about here because they're going to be so critical in the general election. But he has always had a spidey sense for what his base wants, and what his base cares about. And Trump would be happy to kind of, cut a deal or do something that like, is not traditionally conservative or whatever if he didn't think that the base really cared. But on the things that they really care about, he's always sided with the base. And I think we've talked about this when I was at a Turning Point rally when somebody on stage floated Nikki Haley for VP, and the crowd like went into like a venomous rage, like
Yeah.
started chanting misogynist names about her, and like, I think that there was like a lock her up chant that started. I mean, like and just insane stuff. And so I don't think that he can merge somebody like Haley with his core audience, and have it work. And that's why I've always was very skeptical that he would end up choosing her at the end of the day.
Well, the Axios article also discusses Haley's potential advantages of endorsing Trump. Basically, this is Axios cosplaying as political strategists on Trump's behalf. Did that strike you at all?
I did. I mean, I thought it's just absolutely ridiculous. Like the mainstream media has learned nothing. I was clicking on this article and I'm reading it, and this reporter writes about how there could be advantages for Haley to becoming Trump's VP. As he writes, he says that if she does not endorse Trump, it would threaten any future presidential campaign or future in GOP politics for her. And if she does it, that this could help her like have power in the GOP in the future. And it's just like, A, this isn't what reporters should be doing,
Right.
right? Like giving like political strategy just in the first place because they're not good at it. If they were, they would have been political strategists. But
Yeah.
B, in this case, it's even worse because it's like it's horrible advice. Like, did you see what happened to Mike Pence? Like,
Yeah.
was this reporter paying attention to what happened to Mike Pence? And this is just total DC brain rot where they treat politics like it's a game of Risk or like we're playing fantasy football and you're trying to like give a strategic advantage about how you can do better than the other team. And it's like there are real life consequences to this. Mike Pence like almost suffered actual physical harm as a result of becoming Donald Trump's VP. His future in GOP politics was not benefited by becoming Donald Trump's VP. He is nowhere to be found now, not even endorsing Donald Trump. And the idea that Nikki Haley and Donald Trump could like live together in harmony. This is all based on this fantasy that, well, you know what would really work? If Donald Trump was a totally different person, and if he endorsed Nikki Haley, and then he didn't do anything crazy, and then they lived happily ever after, and then Nikki Haley could be the heir to the Donald Trump throne. It's like, okay, well, yeah, all right. Well, is there a new Trump? Like, did he have a lobotomy?
Yeah.
Like this whole thing is just so stupid and shows a total misunderstanding of Trump and the MAGA base. And it's like, how can these people still misunderstand, this MAGA threat 9 years into the Donald Trump era?
Yeah, I mean, this also shows, like, more broadly, how the media is just is just missing the mark, is just not meeting the moment when it comes to the threats that are facing this country right now. I mean, we almost had an insurrection. This country is on the brink of autocracy right now, and you have a major media player right now that's just treating this like another horse race because it's just because it's good for clicks, or because they want to cosplay as political strategists, or because they just don't take it seriously and it doesn't impact them. And they're privileged enough to like not feel the impacts of any of this stuff. Meanwhile, there are women who have pregnancies where they're forced to carry these fetuses to term even though they have genetic defects because of the laws being passed right now. There's the prospect of a nationwide registry that Katie Britt, I think, just introduced from Alabama. I mean, all of this stuff this impacts people's real lives, and I think that's why so many people get disgusted with political coverage, and why they check out is because for the media who covers the majority of this stuff, and we're supposed to get our news, like it's just a joke, like it's a game. And so of course people look at politics cynically, is because look at this coverage of it.
Yeah, totally cynical. And there's no contemplation of the stakes, right? It's just like, oh, it might be good for Haley to get on board with Trump. Like, okay, well, even if your hypothetical is true, even if it's true that Haley gets on board the Trump VP and she helps him with these middle ground voters and that helps him get elected, like think about the ramifications of that, the consequences, the potential consequences for Haley. You would know that Donald Trump would get back in there, would continue to do crimes, would try to do an attack. Like we don't know all the hypotheticals down the road, but we've seen the danger here. We've seen the threat of Donald Trump, and so like treat it seriously.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not saying that Axios needs to like become a Joe Biden campaign PR pamphlet, but you can be serious about like what is real and what the threats of Trump really are and what is going to happen to people that go along with it. And you know that it's going to be bad because we know it. Like we've lived through it already. This isn't a hypothetical. This isn't 2015 anymore, where it's like, there's some of us who were never Trumpers are out there like, screaming maniacally, please don't elect this guy. He's insane. And other people are like, well, who knows? Maybe he'll grow into the office, right? Like it's not like 2015 anymore. We've seen it. We've seen the Capitol get stormed. So just act, based on the information that we already have, and stop doing this stupid, like, parlor game bullshit.
Yeah, I think like that is part of this whole both sides journalism that kind of drives people insane, especially since you can have a bias in favor of democracy. It doesn't always have to be Democrats and Republicans are on the same playing field and everything is completely normal. You can have a bias in favor of democracy because like this is the plane we're all on. And if democracy falls, then we all die with it. So if one party is being anti-democratic and then like it's okay to call that out, even if it's just one side who does it. But I mean, that's a beat that we've all covered for a long time. You mentioned reaching those never Trumpers or pro democracy Republicans. That's the audience that you reach at the Bulwark. So for everybody watching right now, if you want to help elevate their content to give more of a permission structure to those normal Republicans out there, or former Republicans or independents who are trying to figure out where to go in this upcoming election, please help elevate Tim's content over at the Bulwark by subscribing. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Tim, on back to Nikki Haley, it probably is too late for her to come back at this point. She's embarrassed Trump in just about every primary state. Just recently, you and I did a video where she took 22% of the vote in that liberal bastion that is Indiana. She also took 17% in Trump's must-win state of Pennsylvania. So at this point, what's her calculus? Because I would assume that the damage is already done for Nikki Haley. I can't even imagine a world in which she has a future in Republican politics at this point.
Yeah, same. I don't, look, the Republican Party is never going back to Nikki Haley, no matter what, your viewers think
Right.
about Nikki Haley. She has her strengths and weaknesses, her policy views, but like this pre-Trump, kind of view that America needs to be very strong on the global stage. She's socially conservative, but like, not a culture warrior per se, right? Like this sort of classically liberal, right-wing, Republican, that party. That's gone, and the voters don't want it. So, like, they're never going back to her. It doesn't matter if she takes his VP or not. Like, she's not going to be the heir to this MAGA Republican Party.
Yeah.
And so, like, to me, then okay, if you've accepted that reality, then the question is, okay, well, what does she do? And I wouldn't have been surprised just because we've been disappointed so many times that maybe she endorsed Trump because she doesn't accept that reality. She thinks maybe he might lose or die or go to jail, and then maybe the things change. Maybe the party does go back. I think that would be a mistaken calculus, but I could at least understand that calculus. That's by endorsing him, not being the VP, right? Like I can't understand as like I would think that'd be really stupid, but I could understand how she would convince herself to do that. Another option is just stay on the sidelines like Mike Pence did. And that's basically though signing your political death warrant.
Right.
And then there's the other West Wing fantasy option, which I like to put forth because I literally legitimately think this is the best option for Nikki Haley, which is endorse Joe Biden. And again, I think that Joe Biden would want to have a prominent Republican, involved somehow, in order to help reach these Republican voters. Now, she's not going to be the Secretary of State or whatever, but she could have influence and a role there. And I think that there would be a future, maybe as an independent type candidate as the parties start to do their realignment in a red state. I think that like I kind of see in South Carolina a potential future where there's like a MAGA party and then kind of like a centrist independent party that has some Democrats and some former Republicans, and maybe that could be, all of these are kind of fantastical, just because there's just not a lot of appetite out there for the Nikki Haley type of politician right now. But I think that the most absurd is to think that the Republican Party, like that she's going to be the VP and the Republican Party is going to make her the next in line. It's just like
Yeah.
that just misunderstands the Republican Party completely.
Yeah, it's like kind of this thing where you see in the movies where there's like a whole horde of people that are bitten by some zombie, and when you kill the main zombie, all the other zombies like snap out of it and they become normal again. It's just like I think this ship has sailed by this point.
I would love for that to happen, by the way. If there's a zombie bite somewhere and the Republican Party goes back to Nikki Haley, like that would be great.
Yeah.
We could disagree with her on a couple of issues but be in a normal political environment, but I don't think we're in a zombie movie.
No, I think zombie bite is probably the most realistic option at this point for the Republican Party going back to how it was.
Yeah.
Haley obviously has a chilly relationship with Trump, and Trump with her. They've both lashed out at each other, especially as of late. You worked in politics for a long time. You were with Jeb Bush. To what extent is this stuff not personal, and the candidates are actually able to put it all aside?
I think it's different for different candidates, and I think it's different based on ambition, et cetera. A lot of times you can compartmentalize things. You can put things aside if you're ambitious. I mean, look at the most the most embarrassing, slobbering, ambitious animal, Ted Cruz. There you go. You knew I was going to say it before I said it.
Well, that's the thing. Like when you worked for Jeb, Trump famously called him low energy. Jeb didn't support him in 2016. I'm sorry.
Attacked his wife as well.
Attacked his wife, yeah. Didn't support him in 2016. Didn't support him in 2020. But Ted Cruz, who Trump also, gave his nickname to, he called him Lion Ted, also attacked his wife. Ted Cruz has now taken up permanent residence in Trump's colon. So clearly, there's a spectrum here.
There is, and I think that some in politics you do grow a little bit of a thicker skin. I don't think that that's just a talking point. To me, in my experience, for example, the people around Jeb were more personally outraged than Jeb was, by all this stuff. I know he didn't come around and support Trump. It's not like he started liking Trump, but he didn't take it that personally. A lot of people in his life did. And so I assume that that's the case too in a lot of these cases. I mean, Nikki Haley's son has a pretty lit Twitter feed. I don't know if you watch Nayland Haley on Twitter.
I did. I just recently discovered him.
Yeah, so I mean his material is hot. And just looking at his feed, it's pretty hard to imagine Nayland being on board with endorsing Donald Trump, but it's not his life, it's his mom's. And I bet that Nikki Haley's taken a lot of tough daggers from people besides Donald Trump. I mean, South Carolina politics is really rough and tumble, and she's had a lot of very personal attacks on her over the years. So, I think that she could, if she thought that there was a future in teaming up with Trump, if she could convince herself that there is, I bet she could get over the personal side of it. The point that is, and the point that I hope that people around her are hearing is that like there's not hope for like a future for her in a MAGA party. So why try?
Right.
Why further sacrifice your integrity for something that's not even going to pay off on the back end?
Was there anything that you can think of that just so far exceeded the bounds of an attack that you've seen launched by a candidate onto another political candidate? Like, I get that everything's kind of everything's fair in love and war, but like, was there ever anything, and it could have been something, I'm assuming it was probably something that Trump said, but have you seen anything where you're like, holy shit, I can't believe that person actually said that? This is like so outside the bounds of what you would expect in like a political campaign.
Yeah, I mean, the two things come straight to mind. Then this wasn't Trump. This is probably just top of mind because we're going through the Stormy Daniels trial. But everybody talks about the Trump attack on Cruz's wife, which was terrible. But like the other things the National Enquirer was doing, like accusing Ted Cruz of having these affairs with his staffers,
Yeah.
and like kind of naming these young women, some of whom have public platforms of their own. That was really like beyond the pale and out
Yeah.
of bounds, and Trump's fingerprints were all over that, his tiny little fingerprints. And so I like Ted again. That just makes Ted even look more pathetic. But again, that's just one example. And you go back. One of the formative ones for me, I was a McCain person, was the Bush attack on McCain over his daughter. McCain has an adopted black daughter, and the Bush team. I don't know the Bush personally. It's unlike the Trump operation. I know the guy at the top of the ticket had his hands on all this stuff. He had Karl Rove and a lot of these people that were doing this. But their actions in that campaign, which was back in South Carolina, actually before the South Carolina primary in 2000, that one was really bad. And it did take a while for McCain to come back around. And McCain almost didn't endorse Bush in 2004 as a little history lesson for people, and we considered teaming up with John Kerry. Talk about that for like a alternate world history. Like that's how pissed McCain was. And McCain went against the Bush tax cuts in the early 2000s. There could have been other things at play here, but it certainly was a part of it. Like there's just attacks on the family. So like there have been other times people have attacked family members. So, like those are the types of things that stand out. And Nikki Haley, Trump is in line with this. I mean, he attacked her husband, for his military service, and like made these weird accusations that like he wants to be out of the house because whatever, you know what I mean? Like these gross Donald Trump accusations. So, Trump is head and shoulders above the rest on this stuff for sure.
Yeah. Well, again, for those watching right now, if you want to see and hear more from Tim, please make sure to subscribe to The Bulwark. Again, I'll put the link on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Very important to elevate good content to build up this pro-democracy ecosystem from left to right. So please make sure to subscribe. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Tim Miller.
This is Inside the Right.